Morgoth, the first Dark Lord and the great antagonist of the First Age, was not only a corrupter but a creator, twisting beings and birthing terrors to serve his insatiable will. Among these were his dragons, or Uroloki, a creation born from his unmatched malice and cunning. While Glaurung, the father of dragons, was the first of these horrors, it was Ancalagon the Black, Morgoth's most lethal and monumental dragon, who stood as the pinnacle of his monstrous achievements. Ancalagon was not merely a creature of immense destructive power. He was a tool of psychological warfare, a literal embodiment of Morgoth's might, and an apex predator in the tapestry of Middle-earth's tragic First Age. But before delving into Ancalagon's role, it is essential to consider the genesis of Morgoth's dragons. Glaurung, the progenitor, established the archetype of devastating strength and cunning. With Glaurung, Morgoth tested the limits of fire and flesh, perfecting the weapon that would become Ancalagon. Every dragon Morgoth unleashed before Ancalagon served as a precursor, a trial run for the ultimate terror. The father of dragons sowed destruction across Beleriand, shattering armies and turning hope into despair. Yet even Glaurung, with his mastery of manipulation and strategy, paled in comparison to the shadow of Ancalagon. The name Ancalagon itself is laden with meaning. Rushing jaws in Sindarin, a moniker that evokes primal fear. But Ancalagon was not merely a beast, he was a symbol. Dragons in Tolkien's legendarium often serve dual purposes, embodying raw physical power and the corruption of greed and malice. Ancalagon, however, transcended this duality, becoming a manifestation of Morgoth's near-divine capacity to twist life into instruments of terror. What does Ancalagon's creation say about Morgoth's evolving tactics in the War of Wrath? By the time of his arrival, Morgoth's stronghold of Angband was under siege, his armies shattered, and his reign teetering on the brink of collapse. It was in this moment of desperation that Morgoth unleashed his ultimate weapon, a creature so vast and terrible that even the Valar themselves had cause to pause. The release of Ancalagon and his fleet of winged dragons was not merely a military move, but a psychological gambit. Morgoth sought to prove that even in the face of divine wrath, his ingenuity could rival the might of the Valar. The sheer scale of Ancalagon's role in the War of Wrath cannot be overstated. This was no ordinary dragon, even among Morgoth's creations. Descriptions of Ancalagon paint him as a titan, the largest and most powerful dragon to ever exist in Arda. His wings, we are told, blotted out the stars, a vivid reminder of his otherworldly scale and Morgoth's unrelenting ambition. The tale of Ancalagon's emergence hints at something deeper. Morgoth's ultimate strategy to counter the Valar was not in armies or fortresses, but in creating singular entities of catastrophic potential. Ancalagon was not bred for subtlety or long campaigns of terror like Glaurung, but to be a singular, apocalyptic force, a living weapon to unmake the enemy. When Morgoth unleashed Ancalagon the Black during the climactic War of Wrath, it was an act of ultimate defiance. Ancalagon and the other winged dragons emerged from Angband, blotting out the sky and turning the tide of battle momentarily in Morgoth's favor. This was not just a military counterstrike, but an existential statement. Morgoth sought to assert his dominion over Arda itself, challenging the Valar to a contest of destruction. Ancalagon was his magnum opus, a creation designed to shake the foundations of the world. The devastation wrought by Ancalagon is hard to fathom. Unlike his predecessor Glaurung, whose cunning and malice worked through manipulation and fear, Ancalagon was a creature of pure, unbridled destruction. His fire is said to have rivaled the intensity of the volcanic eruptions that reshaped the lands, and his massive wingspan darkened the heavens. This alone makes Ancalagon's role distinct. He was not a schemer, but a force of nature, embodying the apocalyptic chaos Morgoth sought to unleash upon his enemies. But let us pause to consider the broader implications of Ancalagon's existence. Morgoth had invested vast amounts of his own inherent power into his creations, a process that diminished him over time. The sheer might and scale of Ancalagon suggest that this dragon represented one of Morgoth's final, desperate attempts to channel his fading strength into a weapon capable of annihilating his foes. This raises a chilling possibility. Was Ancalagon's creation a reflection of Morgoth's diminishing divinity? By pouring so much of himself into his monstrous lieutenant, Morgoth was perhaps gambling the last vestiges of his creative potency. In this light, Ancalagon is more than a dragon. He is the embodiment of Morgoth's hubris. Morgoth's lust for domination led him to overreach, not unlike his creation's own insatiable hunger for destruction. Ancalagon's vast size, his seemingly inexhaustible flames, and his ability to battle the host of the Valar suggest that Morgoth crafted him not merely as a warrior, but as a testament to his own power. Yet in doing so, Morgoth revealed his greatest weakness, his inability to understand the limits of his own strength. The downfall of Ancalagon is as monumental as his emergence. In one of the most heroic feats in Tolkien's legendarium, Eärendil the Mariner, wielding a Silmaril and accompanied by the great eagles, battled Ancalagon in the skies over Angband. This confrontation between Eärendil and Ancalagon is not merely an epic clash of might, but a pivotal moment in the mythos of Middle-earth. The victory of Eärendil, a mortal elevated to near-divine status, symbolizes the triumph of hope and light over darkness and despair. Ancalagon's defeat was catastrophic, not only for Morgoth, but for the world itself. When the dragon fell, he crashed into the Thangorodrim, the volcanic peaks of Angband, and utterly destroyed them. This act reshaped the very landscape of Middle-earth, a testament to Ancalagon's immense size and destructive power. But here lies another layer of significance. The collapse of the Thangorodrim marks the literal breaking of Morgoth's dominion. The mountains, symbols of his power and fortress of his reign, crumbled under the weight of his own creation. Ancalagon's death becomes a metaphor for the self-defeating nature of Morgoth's ambitions. In the end, Ancalagon's role extends far beyond the battlefield. His existence and demise reveal the deeper themes of Tolkien's mythology, the dangers of unchecked ambition, the destructive power of pride, and the enduring triumph of light over shadow. Morgoth's greatest creation became his undoing, a stark reminder that even the most powerful weapons cannot withstand the inexorable tide of justice and hope. Ancalagon. The black significance in the legendarium cannot be fully appreciated without exploring his symbolic weight and his connections to the broader mythos of Middle-earth. Dragons in Tolkien's works are not merely terrifying monsters, but avatars of greed, corruption, and ruin. Ancalagon epitomizes these traits on a scale that surpasses all others, standing as a harbinger of apocalypse, an instrument of Morgoth's despair-driven nihilism. To understand Ancalagon's unique role, consider how dragons function thematically throughout Tolkien's stories. Glaurung manipulated and deceived, turning kin against kin and exploiting the weaknesses of men and elves alike. Smaug, from The Hobbit, embodied the insatiable greed that consumes both the dragon and those who covet his hoard. Ancalagon, however, goes beyond these individual vices. He becomes the ultimate weapon of destruction, a literal world breaker. If Glaurung and Smaug represent localized corruption, Ancalagon stands as an existential threat, a reminder of what happens when evil seeks to dominate not just people or kingdoms, but the very fabric of creation. This symbolic reading of Ancalagon ties him to a recurring theme in Tolkien's work, the hubris of power unchecked. Morgoth's decision to unleash Ancalagon during the War of Wrath parallels other acts of catastrophic ambition in Tolkien's legendarium, from Feanor's reckless pursuit of the Silmarils to Sauron's forging of the One Ring. In each case, we see characters or beings driven by an insatiable desire for control, their ambitions unraveling into self-destruction. Ancalagon's demise, collapsing the Thangorodrim and destroying Morgoth's stronghold, echoes the later destruction of Barad-dûr and the unmaking of the One Ring. Both moments serve as ultimate reminders that evil, no matter how powerful, carries within it the seeds of its downfall. There is another intriguing parallel. Ancalagon's battle with Arendil and the Great Eagles calls to mind the climactic moments of the Third Age, when the Eagles aid Frodo and Sam in escaping the fires of Mount Doom. In both instances, these winged emissaries of the Valar act as agents of divine intervention, representing hope in the face of overwhelming darkness. Ancalagon, the greatest of Morgoth's winged terrors, is undone by the combined efforts of Arendil and the Eagles, just as Sauron's power is unmade by the unlikeliest of heroes, 2 hobbits and a fragile ring-bearer. This mirroring underscores Tolkien's belief in the enduring power of light and unity against the forces of despair. Ancalagon also has an intriguing relationship with time within the Legendarium. As a creature of the First Age, he exists in a period of grand myth and cosmic struggles, where gods and mortals clashed openly on the battlefield. His defeat signals the end of this mythic era, a transition into the more subdued yet still perilous world of the Second and Third Ages. Tolkien's portrayal of Ancalagon as a singularly catastrophic force, never replicated in later ages, suggests that his role was tied to the unique conditions of the First Age, a time when the Valar themselves intervened in mortal affairs. Additionally, the destruction of the Thangorodrim during Ancalagon's fall may have deeper implications for the geography and mythic resonance of Middle-earth. This cataclysm reshaped the northern reaches of Beleriand, contributing to the sinking of vast lands during the War of Wrath. Tolkien often used geography as a narrative device, with the landscapes of Middle-earth bearing the scars of its long and tragic history. Ancalagon's death becomes not just a turning point in battle, but a literal and symbolic reshaping of the world, echoing the recurring theme of renewal through sacrifice and destruction. Ultimately, Ancalagon serves as a microcosm of Morgoth's philosophy, a belief in domination through overwhelming force. Yet his role also highlights the limits of such power. No matter how vast or terrifying Morgoth's creations, they could not stand against the unity of purpose embodied by the Valar, the Elves, and the mortal heroes of Middle-earth. In this way, Ancalagon's defeat becomes an affirmation of Tolkien's central themes: the necessity of courage, the inevitability of hope's victory, and the enduring truth that even the mightiest shadows must eventually fade. Though Ancalagon's destruction marked the conclusion of Morgoth's reign, his legacy reverberates throughout Middle-earth's history. Unlike his predecessors, whose deeds were limited to specific regions or events, Ancalagon's story lingers as an archetype of ultimate devastation. His fall reshaped not only the physical landscape of Beleriand, but also the collective memory of Arda's peoples. One fascinating aspect of Ancalagon's enduring legacy is the cultural memory of dragons in Middle-earth. By the Second and Third Ages, dragons like Smaug and the cold drakes of the Grey Mountains carried echoes of Ancalagon's might, but they were pale imitations. Ancalagon's overwhelming size and power made him a figure of near-mythic proportions, an apex predator that existed on the border between legend and history. This distinction is crucial because it highlights the diminishing power of Morgoth's legacy over time. The dragons of later ages are formidable, but lack the cosmic gravitas of their forebear, a testament to the slow unraveling of Morgoth's influence after his defeat. Another compelling thread to consider is the fate of Morgoth's remaining creations after Ancalagon's fall. Were there other dragons of comparable power lurking in the shadows, waiting for their moment to rise? The Legendarium does not provide a definitive answer, but the absence of any dragon approaching Ancalagon's scale in subsequent ages suggests that he was singular, a pinnacle of Morgoth's creativity and malice, never to be repeated. This singularity reinforces the notion that Ancalagon's creation came at a great cost to Morgoth, perhaps depleting his already waning strength. From a thematic perspective, Ancalagon's defeat foreshadows the eventual downfall of Sauron. Both Morgoth and his lieutenant Sauron relied heavily on overwhelming force and fear to subjugate their enemies, yet both were undone by the unity and resilience of their foes. Ancalagon's death at the hands of Arendil mirrors Sauron's defeat at the hands of Frodo, Sam, and the Fellowship, a reminder that the greatest powers of evil can be overthrown by the most unexpected alliances. Finally, we must reflect on Ancalagon's role as a narrative device. Tolkien used him to underscore the stakes of the War of Wrath, presenting a foe so terrifying that even the host of the Valar had reason to falter. Yet his eventual defeat served to emphasize one of Tolkien's central themes: that hope, even in the face of insurmountable odds, is never in vain. In this way, Ancalagon's fall becomes a moment of catharsis, a triumph of light over darkness that resonates throughout the ages. Thus, Ancalagon the Black stands as more than just Morgoth's most lethal dragon. He is a symbol of ultimate power wielded in defiance of creation itself, and his defeat marks one of the most pivotal moments in the mythic history of Middle-earth.